What's up, all you saints, sinners, rockers, and blue-collar folk? I am John, the creative blue-collar guy, and we've got another story here about Roger Waters. This previous Monday, I had done a live stream specifically just talking about his redo of one of the greatest albums, I choose my words carefully because I don't want people nitpicking, one of the greatest albums in rock history, music history, however you want to classify Pink Floyd, but also arguably one of the greatest albums in the Pink Floyd catalog within the band. He redid The Dark Side of the Moon and made it terrible. Go back and watch the live stream. It's definitely worth it. I'm probably still going to throw in a lot of commentary here about it, but we're just going to get into a little bit more about how Roger Waters is just I wouldn't quite use the word washed up because obviously he's touring. I think he's doing a final tour. I'm not sure. Or maybe his tour is called This Is Not the End, but it's sort of an end. I don't know. He's still selling out shows, but I don't think people are really buying his new music anymore, his solo albums, his whatever. So he's just sort of an aging, irrelevant, petty rock star that is continuing to try and erase the work of his former bandmates from Pink Floyd. Most notably David Gilmour, and most criminally the late Richard Wright, who is no longer with us. Because I always say, whenever people argue over, oh well, who was the better band member in Pink Floyd? It was Roger Waters, it was David Gilmour. But without Richard Wright, without his work on keys, on the synthesizers, Pink Floyd would not have had their signature psychedelic sound, as they say. Even though they claim that they did not really prefer the psychedelic drugs, but, I'm sure they experimented. It was the 60s, it was the 70s. Right. Really quick, though, before we do get into this story, thank you all so much for being here. Whether you are new here, whether you are a returning subscriber, I appreciate each and every one of you. If you are new here, please take a second to hit that subscribe button. Make sure to like this video. Sound off in the comments. Share this out there for others to see, because every subscriber, every comment, every like, every interaction really does help the channel. And to the trolls that just want to leave mean comments, negative comments are traffic too, so I appreciate you just as much. Thanks for being here. All right, now that all the business is out of the way, let's get into it. So at a recent show, Roger Waters allegedly tells crowd to off during show, and fans walked out. I mean, you play stupid games, win stupid prizes. Like, I think at this point, he's such a legend in his own mind. I feel like he thinks that he can do that, and people will just sit down and go, oh, okay, I guess we should just put up with the crappy show. No. I mean, yeah, people still paid their money, so he still got their money, but it's like, you tell the crowd to piss off, they're going to do it. You're not that relevant anymore. You're not that important. Let's be real. Let's be really honest. If I were to go to a Roger Waters show, which I would not, I would rather go see David Gilmour, because they both play Pink Floyd songs, but I would rather see David Gilmour as a solo artist. If I were to go to a Roger Waters show, all I would want to hear are Pink Floyd songs. I don't give two flying flips about any of his solo music. And I mean, yes, The Wall was a brilliant piece of music. There was some weirdness in there, but the final album featuring Roger Waters, the final cut, is awful, because it's just a precursor to his solo career, where it's just a lot of weird musical segues and him talking, and that's kind of what he did with The Dark Side of the Moon here. We're going to get into that. But so he released his redo of The Dark Side of the Moon. So Roger Waters here from, got an article here from Loudwire. Roger Waters played his first show since June, this past Sunday, which is October 8th. I know I'm a little bit behind on this one, but here we are. And it was also his first performance since the October 6th release of The Dark Side of the Moon redo. The show has received a lot of criticism, however, as the musician apparently told the crowd to F off, which prompted some fans to leave. Well, he got what he wanted, And I've even heard and read reviews of recent tours of Roger Waters that he spends more time of the show talking in between songs than just going on and belaboring and lecturing people about politics and world issues and everything. And hey, whatever. I might disagree with a lot of things that he says, but it's like, I get it. It's important to know what's going on in the world around you, both locally and globally and whatever. But I mean, okay, he's really into politics. All right. He writes it into his songs. Okay, fine. crowds pay a ton of money, and especially a Roger Waters show. People are paying a ton of money to come to your show to hear you sing. So if your songs are politically driven, fine, put it in the song and sing the song. But when you're taking long breaks in between songs to just talk and to just lecture people, you can also see a video I did quite a while back about the Dropkick Murphys doing the same thing. And I'm like, I get it. You're super liberal. You're super left. You're whatever. I don't care. Put it in your songs. Put it in your music. But I paid money to see a show, to hear music, to hear songs. Write your rants into your songs. But God, don't take time out of your concert to just talk at me and tell me what I should think and what I should do. God. But I digress. The show took place at the London Palladium. Words are hard this morning. And according to various sources, including LW Theaters, Waters intended to premiere his new version of Dark Side of the Moon. However, fans got much more than that. Much more or much less? Let's find out. Daily Mail reports that the 80-year-old singer also spent an hour of a concert reading excerpts from his unpublished memoir, Dark Side of the Moon, Memoirs of a Lanky Prick. I mean, I can't argue with that title. I mean, that's just spot on. On his laptop, while sitting at a desk on stage, one of the stories he read was about a duck named Donald, and it went on for around 20 minutes. Okay, so I'm going to take a minute here to back up before we get more into my personal commentary about his redo of the Dark Side of the Moon, more about this show. About, maybe a year ago or so, he announced a tour, and he, ahead of the tour, was talking about the set list, the songs they would be playing, and he released a newly re-recorded version of the Pink Floyd song, Comfortably Numb, which is another one. Again, I'm going to choose my words carefully because I know people nitpick me in the comments. Comfortably Numb is one of the greatest songs in rock history, music history, whatever you want to classify them as, which I believe, in my very humble opinion, features one of the greatest guitar solos out there. One of the greatest guitar solos out there. David Gilmour's work on that song is absolutely phenomenal. I've seen many live videos of David Gilmour performing it where he stretches the solo out and ends out his show with it, and there's laser lights going. I mean, that would be an amazing show to see. And I hope someday I get to see David Gilmour, but these guys are getting up there in years. So Roger Waters re-recorded Comfortably Numb, and much like what he ended up doing with the Dark Side of the Moon, he just sort of replaced any interesting music and just put in what all I could describe as is if you pull up one of those sleep stations on Spotify or sleep meditation stations on Spotify that just has the really light music in the background, maybe some crashing waves and wind and just stuff to help you sleep. That's what this music sounds like on the Comfortably Numb re-recording, on the entire Dark Side of the Moon redo. Everything, he takes out all the electric guitars, all of Richard Wright's phenomenal work on the synthesizers and keys, everything that Nick Mason did on the drums, and then he just sort of talks over it with his now very low gravelly voice that's starting to sound like Tom Waits, which, funny enough, I'm a fan of Tom Waits, but it's because he does his thing and he's not going and re-recording songs he did with other talented people in the past just to spite them. So I really believe that Roger Waters is just one of the most petty people out there in this world, that he, even all these years later, they said he's 80 years old and he still has this ongoing feud or this ongoing grudge against David Gilmour. Don't you think at some point they'd be able to drop it and, maybe they're never going to be best friends again, but just sort of, move on with your life? David Gilmour sure seems to have. He doesn't seem bothered by any of this. Anyways, so his whole re-recording of Dark Side of the Moon, he did the same thing. It opens with a spoken word poem that never existed anywhere on the album. Anywhere on the album, there was originally a guitar solo or some great work by the other musicians, or like in Money when there's a guitar solo and then the saxophone comes in and everything. Anytime there was supposed to be something really interesting musically that there was on the original, he adds in some new poem and he's telling stories about a friend that died of cancer. And I mean, okay, that's tough. I'm very sorry that he had a loved one that died of cancer, but I don't know, do a spoken word tour, put out a new album that's just spoken word stuff. Like, why do you have to piss all over this great masterpiece from so many decades ago? And I really do, again, in my personal humble opinion, I think he's doing this out of spite. But again, David Gilmour and Nick Mason don't really seem bothered by it. Nick Mason said he thought this was brilliant, but maybe he was just being polite. I don't know. Who knows? He might have liked it. It's, to each their own. Continuing on talking about the show where Roger Waters is sitting there at a desk reading from his memoir from a laptop, saying, quote, "Another story began promisingly as a memory of Pink Floyd's original singer, the late Syd Barrett, but revealed nothing more than that Barrett wrote a lot of songs and had an innocent air about him." You think he'd have more to say about the guy. I mean, I don't want to get all into it because it's a whole other long story, big can of worms, but the tale of Syd Barrett is a very sad one. He just sort of left the band, had some mental health issues, disappeared into obscurity, and kind of died a nobody, other than being the original frontman and lead songwriter of Pink Floyd for their he was featured on the first album. I think he's credited as a writer for at least one or two albums past that. They said it got to a point to where just between his drug use and then whatever mental stuff he had going on that was probably either caused by or exacerbated by his drug use, they couldn't work with him. But his whole life is just kind of a sad story, really, because he just kind of just sort of retired, sort of faded away, and yeah. The Times writer Will Hodgson said in a review of the show, Men's Journal further noted that Waters shouted at the audience to f*** off as they became frustrated with the unanticipated performance, and thus fans began exiting the venue. I mean, I think if I went to see a show and the guy on stage told me to F off, I'd probably do the same thing. I'd be like, I don't care if I already paid my money. I'm going to do what you're telling me to do right now because I don't need to sit here and listen to this. Waters allegedly informed the audience at the start of the performance that it was going to be split into different parts, though, according to the national news. So those who waited out the storytelling apparently witnessed a great show. The musician kicked off the music portion of the show with a new song called The Bar, followed by a different rendition of Mother from the Wall. What a surprise. He redid another Pink Floyd song. Then he and his band tackled the Dark Side of the Moon redo in its entirety. So it was basically more spoken word for the next 45 minutes. They received a standing ovation at the show's conclusion and then played again at the same venue the next night, October 9th. You can check out fan-filmed footage of Waters' performances of Any Color You Like from the evening below. Pink Floyd fans are discussing the performance and many reviews of it on Reddit, with some of them arguing in defense of Waters' approach to the show, and others understanding why some of the attendees were dissatisfied. So people got what they paid for, a performance of Redo and some bonus insight into the mind of the guy putting on a show, as well as a few other songs, one of which being a brand new song performed in its entirety for the first time. Sounds like a good time to me, but to each their own, which is fair. But I also know that I already know I wouldn't want to pay money to go see a Roger Waters show, because this is becoming an ongoing thing with him where he just wants to talk. He just wants to lecture. He wants to, maybe he should have gone into politics. I don't know, but it's like, you're a musician. People paid to see a show, sing. Another article said that some people were saying they felt like they were being talked down to or shouted at by like some mean school marm or something, like they're bad children and being disciplined, and just the way that he spouts off, the way he talks to people, he's just, I don't know. And I said it in the live stream, I'll say it again. Listening to that redo of Dark Side of the Moon, I could only get through it once. I almost turned it off. I couldn't get through it. I almost couldn't get through it because just all the spoken word stuff, all of it just sounds so pretentious that he's going to take away all the interesting parts of the music. A song like Money, I did not know you could make the song Money so boring. The greatest crime, however, was the song written by the late Richard Wright, The Great Gig in the Sky. When they recorded that song, Richard Wright is on the piano, playing a beautiful piece on the piano, and they brought in a vocalist. I looked it up for the live stream. I don't have it in front of me, so forgive me, I forget her name. But they brought in a vocalist, and there were no lyrics, there were no words. She wasn't singing any verses or choruses. It was just sort of a free form. Rick is going to play, just sing, you know, whatever, and just think about death. You know, the great gig in the sky, think about death. And what came out from that recording was sort of an impromptu, he's going to play, you're going to sing, just think of death. And that's what they got. He, again, just put some boring sleep music in the background and read some new poem over the top of it. And it's like, are you just hell-bent on erasing great work that other people did? Oh, I just lost my screen. I probably bumped my desk or something. But anyways, yeah, my monitor's disconnecting. Well, that's fun. Anyways, technical difficulties aside, that's pretty much the end of this one. So that's all I have to say. Let me know what you guys think about this in the comments. Have you listened to the new version of Dark Side of the Moon? What do you think of Roger Waters? What do you think about this whole thing? Just sound off. Let me know. Again, make sure to hit that subscribe button on your way out. Like this video, share it out there for others to see, and I will see you guys in the next video.